If I had my way, I would have this book distributed to every single person in the world. If I had the money, I would literally pay for a copy of this to be sent through every single person's letterbox the world throughout. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by an author called Viktor Frankl. The classic tribute to hope from the Holocaust. It's a fascinating story. It's a two-part book. This guy here, Viktor Frankl, had an experience during the Second World War where he was held captive in a Nazi concentration camp, where he experienced torture, torment. He was sent to the gas chambers a couple of times. He had parts of his body removed by some of the Nazi guards. He witnessed his friends being tortured, some killed, some died of natural causes, i.e. frost or hunger or starvation, things like that. Now, I cannot begin to imagine for a moment what going through an experience like that might be like, all right? I can only relate to what my experiences in life have been. I served a decade in the army. I've been to war. I've been with close friends in their dying hours, and I don't have a sob story that's any greater or more than or less than yours, right? We've all got a past. We've all got a history. The question is, what are we going to do with it? Right? A lot of people go through life, so what's the purpose of life? Is there any meaning to life? So this guy anyway had this experience and he wrote about it. At the end of his spell in the Nazi concentration camp, the World War II ended. Right? The Allied forces ended up kind of breaking into this Nazi concentration camp, taking all the Nazis captive then and freeing all those who'd been ensnared, who'd been enslaved. Can you imagine what it would be like to be a prisoner one moment or a captive one minute and free the next? Right? As a captive, all you can probably think about is freedom. Or, I don't know, could you? Maybe if you're a captive or a prisoner where all of your comforts are removed, maybe what might occupy a person's mind is, how can I make this experience slightly more secure? How can I become more comfortable? I don't know, all right? I remember serving in Iraq during the Second Gulf War, and when we went into Iraq, this was right at the start of 2003, we were one of the first military units into Iraq. Myself and the unit of guys that I'd gone across there with, we were commissioned with clearing out, it was a United Nations compound that had been overrun by the Iraqi military, so we had to kind of take that back, and that was what we used as our base. To say it was messy would be an understatement. It was crawling with cockroaches. I think it took us a few days to clean the place out just to make it habitable. I remember kind of cleaning up the floor and brushing along a couple of fingers and a few body parts. Interesting to say the least. I'm talking about sweeping up some body parts as if this is like a common everyday occurrence, right? It certainly isn't a common everyday occurrence. Some people would have an experience like that and be scarred and traumatized for life, but I wasn't. All right, back then going through his experience, all I could think about was just getting a few days sleep. All right, and before I was able to sleep and rest, I just needed some cleanliness around me. All right, I wouldn't say that I'm a clean freak. I just don't like sleeping in filth. I don't like my home being filthy. I hate filth. All right, I'm a person who just appreciates order and structure and cleanliness and discipline and all that sort of thing. So I was literally blitzing this place. Every single corner of this accommodation block was bleached from top to bottom. All right, any bacteria that remained was lucky to be alive, I say. Right, so why do I say that? I tell you the story because that experience birthed something in me. All right, not a grave need for comfort or security, but the restrictions I experienced in that stage of life were in the middle of war. All right, now I can't relate to what Viktor Frankl went through, but I can relate to having gunshots, bullets firing in our direction, getting shot at, listening to the air raid sirens and having to go into underground bunkers with these old school military respirators, barely able to breathe, the discomfort, the claustrophobia, the heat, the malnutrition, the dehydration. And that was horrendous. Horrendous living environments, horrendous existing, a horrendous experience to have for any human being, never mind the Nazi concentration camp. So Viktor Frankl went through his experience. And was he traumatized? Well, I'm not sure. I've never had a conversation with the guy, but he did write a book. Right, come on, how many people do you know today are lining up outside the doctor's office to tell the doctor of their woes? Perhaps daddy spanked their arse as a child, or or something happened to them, and that's them. They get diagnosed with trauma, and that's them traumatized for life, kind of like trauma's an illness. All right, trauma is just emotional unregulation. Right, it's a mark of an unregulated mind. Right, because yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, today's a gift. The problem is many people focus on the past and re-immerse themselves in the past and relive the past again and again and again and again, like a broken record player, skipping. Right? Have you heard the term PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder? Well, that's all that is. Right? It's not an illness. It's just an unhelpful pattern of thinking, focusing on the past. So we're talking here about hyper-focus. We're only going to become effective and productive in life if we're focused on a meaningful, rewarding end. Well, I guess that's what Viktor Frankl was able to do, because it kept him alive, and he documented his whole experience in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Throughout his whole experience, he said, there has to be a reason for all of this. Value has to come from this. If no value comes from this experience, what's the point of even being alive? So he took it upon himself to give himself purpose. He assigned meaning onto his experience. Every single day he remained alive. He said, I'm alive to document this experience so that once this is all over, I can give other people hope that experiences like this are in fact overcomable. So Viktor Frankl, what I'm saying here, found a sense of direction and meaning and purpose in his life through adversity, through facing the worst experience or set of circumstances that any human being could actually experience in life. He went on to become a therapist and he wrote a few other books, but he turned adversity into a meaningful purpose. Man's Search for Meaning. So, our sense of purpose, if you like, is more about what we're looking at in the future, what we want to build or what we want to create or what we want to achieve. It has to be meaningful for us in order to motivate us. Right? For example, I want to build learning centres. Why? Right, come on, we're going to go a little bit deeper here if that's okay with you. Because see, throughout school, right, I was called a retard. They called me a retard in school. The teacher called me dyslexic. I was put in special needs groups. I was taught in school that I wasn't smart. Some children are just able to learn, and others have special needs. It was that point in history where the term special needs just started coming about. So I was taught there was something wrong with me because I couldn't learn in exactly the same way as all of my other classroom peers. It took me into my late 20s to discover and learn the hard way that just simply wasn't true. Right? I just learn in a different way. I learn through speaking things out. I learn through conversing with people. I learn through processing ideas, through reflecting, not by reading books, not through reading theories, not by listening to a person standing in front of a whiteboard writing on a screen. Right? I learn through engagement. Right? Believe it or not, as I stand here presenting ideas with you today, all right, I teach myself a few things. As I talk things through, things become clearer in my mind. Right? There are no strings on me. I'm not reading from a script here. All right? Any authentic teacher will not read from a script. All right? So, is this a unique way of learning? No, it's just our way of learning. But it wasn't understood back then. Right? Back when I was going through school, learning styles weren't understood. All right? You either retain information or you're not smart, and that was it. So it took me up until my 30s to realise that I wasn't dyslexic, but up until that point, and to discover dyslexic's just a word, it doesn't actually mean anything, I genuinely believed that I was incapable of learning. I thought I was stupid. Right, so guess what happened at around about 30 when I realised, wow, I can learn. And I'm really getting this stuff, and I'm understanding this stuff. My thirst for knowledge and understanding shot through the roof. I immersed myself for almost 5 or 6 years in full and part-time study. I was studying full-time courses, alongside evening courses, weekend courses, home study courses, reading books. I immersed myself. It's like in those 5 or 6 years, I caught up for the 25 years prior that I'd missed out on because I didn't believe that I was fit for purpose. So, you might be thinking, well, what are you telling us? We don't want to hear your life story, Kane Ramsey. Well, this is why I'm here today. This is my purpose. My purpose in life is to help as many people around the world understand that the only limitations they have in life are the limitations that they place upon themselves. All right? No one in the world is a word. Dyslexic is a what, 7 or 8 letter word? What does it mean? It means whatever we decide it means, right? Academics create words. 1 or 2 people around the world determine which words go into dictionaries. I remember one of the training courses I created a few years ago on communication skills. I invented a new word. Oh, did I get some complaints? Some people say that word doesn't exist, it's not been invented yet, right? Have not all words been invented? I think they have. All words have been invented by human beings. All right, you don't get qualified to invent words. All right, so the reason why I say this is because we all have a past, we all have a future. We can use our past and the hardships that we've experienced to make sense of what might be a more meaningful direction for us to channel our focus in. I've become a teacher, and I'm passionate about being a teacher that can connect with those people who were just like me back then, who sometimes just need to process and work things through to understand. Some people, I get it, learn by retaining information. Some people only retain information when they hear or when they see or they get some sense of what's going on or when they get some hands-on experience. I have to talk things through to make sense of information. And the conventional classroom setting doesn't allow for that. Hence the reason I was undermined through the process. Hence the reason I became passionate about taking information online for those just like me who are seeking to learn and grow in their own way. Right, man's search for meaning. Sometimes our past events are what shape our future vision. All right, if you have been rejected much in your past, your rejection can actually become your future direction if you allow it to. If you've experienced hardship, there's 2 attitudes you can take towards hardship. You can assume that you are the hard done by one, you are the victim, kind of like you have been overcome, or you can look at your hardship or your adversity and say, what didn't kill me makes me stronger. I've lived to tell the tale. I can use my hardship to encourage those who are going through hardship that it's possible to overcome this hardship and come out the other end. All right, now this can be applied in a number of different situations. You might be in management or leadership. You most likely have done, had a horrendous experience of leadership or management at some point in the past. Well, guess what opportunity you have? You have the opportunity to be better. All right, to add value to the world, to become a plus rather than another minus. There's plenty of minuses in the world, isn't there? Not too many pluses. So, a few other ideas. I'm going to build on this. All right, I want to offer you 6 keys to unlocking hyper-efficiency, hyper-effectiveness in your life. All right, number 1, self-awareness. Becoming established in a meaningful sense of purpose in your life requires a deep understanding of yourself and how it is that you're currently living your life. What self-awareness never does is agrees with people, disagrees with people, or points its finger blaming people. Because self-reflection and self-awareness happens as we point our finger closer to home and say, what part am I playing in the process? Never mind, I agree, I disagree. What do I understand? What don't I yet know? What can't I see that I need to see? What have I not yet grasped? All right, what new information do I need to acquire here? Unlocking our purpose requires understanding the internal motivations that drive our attitude, our actions, and our behaviors. Right? Are you driven by security? Are you driven by freedom? Are you driven by significance? By having your name in Broadway? Are you motivated by inner peace? Are you motivated by fulfillment? Are you motivated by happiness? Right? If you're motivated by happiness, you might be saying, oh yes, please, that sounds lovely. You might have to go through a few years of unfulfillment because you can't have happiness and fulfillment at the same time. Happiness is not fulfillment. Fulfillment is not happiness. Right? They're very, very different things. Right? Happiness comes when we have gratifying experiences, when we're getting what we want, when we're getting stuff. Right? Children like to feel happy, don't they? As we mature and grow in life, it's wise to set more mature goals. Right? Young people want to feel happy. But as we mature, we experience fulfillment when we are able to identify that our values are being fulfilled, our priorities are being met. When we have fulfillment, we don't need happiness. Happiness becomes irrelevant. Happiness is like, oh, I'm happy, oh, I'm happy. Fulfillment, oh, I'm content. I've done it. I'm at peace. I'm okay. Right? Happiness is very different from fulfillment. So give that some thought. Right? As you consider what your ambitions are, unlocking our purpose requires tuning into our most profound and congruent ambitions, goals, hopes, or future aspirations. Right, where I live in Dunfermline in Scotland, this was the birthplace of Andrew Carnegie, one of the industrialists back at the start of the Industrial Revolution. He started as a son of a weaver. Right, there's a Andrew Carnegie Birthplace Museum just about a mile away from where I live. And, you know, obviously I'm naturally interested in anyone innovative who's come from Scotland. But I've been there a couple of times, and what I was interested to learn was that Andrew Carnegie wasn't put through school. Right? Andrew Carnegie was positioned to follow in his father's footsteps and become a weaver. It was his uncle who brought Andrew books. Andrew, through reading books, gained all sorts of new perspectives, and this sparked his imagination, and history tells the tale. He went on to become one of the richest men in history going back 200 years ago. The education system, incidentally, was put in place to prepare people to enter into industrialism. So schools didn't exist back then. Yes, there was, you know, different forms of education, but not school and education as we know it today. So the reason why I say this was because Andrew Carnegie, yes, he built business, he went on to generate millions, he moved to America, impacted and pretty much transformed much of the modern world, or influenced transforming much of the modern world. But the money that he generated, right, the majority of it got sent home to Scotland. Why? Because what Andrew Carnegie's vision was to put in place a library in every town, every city and every village Scotland throughout, so that other boys and girls like him would be able to access books and thus also access the same level of opportunity that he took for himself. All right, it's interesting. Once you understand what a person values, you understand the person. All right, I value freedom because for 25 years of my life, I thought I was educationally retarded. That's what I was told back in school. I thought I was dyslexic because that's what I'd been told. I didn't know that I just had a different way of learning. So having come to realize this, I want to make sure that anyone out there who thinks they're a dummy, who thinks they're not too smart, can find comfort in knowing that it's possible to achieve anything that you put your mind to and focus on, if you will, but work hard and become disciplined in your ways. All right, you can achieve anything in your life, and this is some good news. Your ambitions are determined solely by the vision that you have for that which you can go on to build with your life. Your life experience, right? You will have had some highs and you will have had some lows. Once you are ready to get over the pity party, you're going to be ready to start building something meaningful with your life. All right, unlocking our purpose requires clarity on the frustrations and the voids we've identified that we're prepared to do something about. I see a void in the education system, so I do something about it. I'm not, talking about doing something about it. I'm doing something about it. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I've done something about it. I continue to do something about it. All right? What are you doing with your life that's so great? What are you doing with your life that inspires you to get out of bed in the morning? All right? How ambitious are you? What do you want your life to stand for? Right? Do you even want your life to count? Passion, frustration, and purpose go hand in hand. Right? I'm being straight with you. So many people view frustration as like an enemy in life. It's not. If you want to know what you're passionate about, just look at what frustrates you. All right? If there's something about society, where you live, the world at large, that really, really frustrates you, are you willing to do something about this, or are you just going to complain about it for the rest of your life, hoping that someone else does? All right? Look at the majority of protesters around the world today. All right? Campaigns. I'm not even going to name any of these groups because some people will just try to cancel me. All right? So you've got groups of people lying across motorways, beheading statues of great men and women who have existed and done remarkable things over the last couple of centuries, right? Because they disagree with old ideologies that are no longer present throughout society today. All right? So people picket, people protest, right, and say things like, the government needs to do this, and society should be better. And society's made up of individuals, and individuals have the final say over who gets voted into political power. So the individual has just as much responsibility to pioneer and lead change throughout society as what the politician does. All right? How much responsibility are you willing to take for doing something about that which frustrates you the most? Something or nothing. All right? Something or nothing.